I'm going to be breaking down my workflow and the steps that I take in order to get really good colors on shots like this. Now, we're not going to be working with really polished footage where you just immediately can throw on a conversion LUT and a creative LUT and instantly everything looks really good. We're going to be working with two different sources of cameras. We're going to be working with an FX3 and an Osmo Pocket 3. So completely different gamma curves, different color spaces. And I'm going to show you the proper workflow in DaVinci Resolve on how you can tackle this and get really great results. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to navigate to our settings and we're going to set up our color management in DaVinci Resolve. So I'm over here selecting color management in the side tab. In the color science, we're going to be doing DaVinci YRGB. And for timeline color space, this is going to be DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. All this means is the tools are going to respond a certain way. And then the output color space is your display. So I am on a Mac laptop, and so I'm going to be showing the viewer as a Rec. 709A viewer window so that what I see in the viewer reflects what I see on the export. And then lastly, make sure that if you're using any 3D LUT tables to set that to tetrahedral for your LUTs. And then we're going to go ahead and click OK, and we're good to go. Now that we have that set up, what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of groups. And this is really beneficial, especially if you're in DaVinci Resolve and you have multiple clips from different cameras or different environments, and you want to color grade them on a group base. So here we have a collection of a lot of different clips. We have something from the Osmo Pocket 3. We've got clips from the FX3 and S-Log3. And so we're going to go ahead and group them together. And the way you do that is we are on the color page right here, and we're going to select all the clips that have the same color profile with the same camera. Now, in this case, we have the FX3 with S-Log3. We're going to select all these clips, right click and go to groups and set that to S-Log3. Now I've already created that group, so I have that here. And when you do that, over here on this right side, you can now see that you have 4 tabs. You have a group pre-clip, you have the clip, then you have a group post-clip, and then you have your timeline. Okay, we're going to do this to the last clip. This one, we're going to right click and go to groups. We're going to add a new group, and we're going to just call this Osmo Pocket 3, and this is D-Log-M. All right, so now we also have this grouped. Now, since we only have one clip, we don't really need to do that, but I'm going to show you this workflow because it's going to be very beneficial and save you a lot of time when you're working in Resolve and you have a larger sequence of clips. All right, now that we have this set up, we're going to go ahead and get each one of our node trees set up properly for each individual clip so that we can speed through it and get really great consistent results. So once we added that group pre-clip, we can now go ahead and apply our base LUT. Usually we add a conversion LUT to go from our log profile to our display. And in this case, it's going to be Rec. 709 because we're viewing this on a Rec. 709 display. Now, traditionally, you go ahead and go to your clip and you're going to add a conversion LUT there. But because we have this grouped and you want to apply this to a lot of different clips, we can now take advantage of these groups. So I'm going to navigate to my group pre-clip here, and then I'm going to go over to my gallery. And in my gallery, I have all these power grades already preset. Now, these power grades are available for free. We have these available on our website if you want to utilize them and follow along. This is going to be very helpful. But I've set them up where you can apply your node tree to everything, so you can see our whole node tree. But because we're taking advantage of groups, we don't need to use that. We can go ahead and use our actual group pre. So I'm going to select pre and drag this over here, and instantly it sets it up for what I want. Okay, we have our log to DaVinci Wide Gamut. Then, because we want to have the same look across this entire sequence, we want to do that on a timeline level. So I'm going to go over to our timeline now, and then I'm going to go and grab the timeline one, which has clip or timeline. This actually has 2 different power grades in it. If you drag it to clip, it's going to be one power grade. If you drag it to the timeline, it's going to be the timeline one. So we're going to drag this to timeline, and we have that set up here. I'm just going to clean this up so that you can kind of see everything. Don't need this one. So here we have our, I guess, sandwich method where we're taking a clip and we're going to be applying something on the group pre-clip, and then we're going to apply something to all the footage. Now, the reason why I'm doing that, and this is why it's really powerful, is watch what happens. I'm going to go to my group pre-clip and I'm going to set my input. We're going from D-Log-M to Rec. 709 our display. But we want to take advantage of the wider color space that DaVinci has, which is DaVinci Wide Gamut and then DaVinci Intermediate. So we can take advantage of that by using our base LUTs. And this is really unique because currently there is no color space transform available to go from D-Log-M to DaVinci Wide Gamut. There's all these workarounds and they are not effective and they are not color accurate. However, we do have a color accurate one because we've properly profiled this sensor to work in DaVinci Wide Gamut. So we're going to navigate to Base LUTs 2.0, select DJI, and then this was on the Osmo Pocket 3, and then we're going to choose D-Log-M to DaVinci Wide Gamut, and we're going to put this on the group pre-clip right here. And now the clip is set up for DaVinci Wide Gamut. So anything that we do after this, we are working in that wider color space. But we want to see what it looks like on display, so we're going to go back to our timeline. We're going to select this first one, DaVinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709, and we're going to utilize our DaVinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709 LUT 2. This one also we have available for free on our website. And whenever you drag this on here, instantly we can see how this clip is properly displayed on a Rec 709 display. So if I just go before and after, this is a properly converted D-Log-M clip to Rec 709 in DaVinci Wide Gamut, which is powerful. Now, before we start adjusting this clip and getting it dialed in, let's do the same step for all the S-Log3 clips. Now, we only need to do it one time because they're all in a group. So let's navigate over to one of the clips. We're going to go over to our group pre-clip, and we're going to go to our gallery, and we're going to select the pre and drag that on here. And then we want to select the correct LUT. So let's go over to our base LUTs. We're going to select Sony, FX3, and then this is the FX3 S-Log3 to DaVinci Wide Gamut. Let's drag this on here. And now we have a properly converted S-Log3 clip to our display Rec 709. And the reason for that, like I said, is we had this sandwich where the very first thing is going from log to DaVinci Wide Gamut. We're going to do all of our color balancing, and then we're going to go from DaVinci Wide Gamut to our display, which is Rec 709 here on the timeline. Okay, so now we can see all these clips and how they look. And then we're going to start dialing in and getting everything balanced. So I'm going to go ahead and select one clip. Let's go ahead and start with this clip right here. And we're going to take a look and make sure it's all balanced before we start applying any kind of creative look. So let's go over to our clip level. And again, I can take advantage of this Powergrade. So let's grab clip, drag this over here. And now everything is set up and ready. So if I need any noise reduction, I can immediately turn it on. Now this is a studio-based option. So if you want to take advantage of any kind of texture like noise reduction, or if you want any grain or halation, you do need to have DaVinci Resolve Studio to get advantage of that. I have this turned off by default so that if you are using the free version of DaVinci Resolve, it won't affect the screen because you're not utilizing that. But since we've gone from S-Log3 to DaVinci Wide Gamut, that now means these nodes respond in DaVinci Wide Gamut timeline. Okay, so I can go over to my HDR tab here, and then anything I do in my exposure is like I'm adjusting the exposure in camera. Okay, and you can see how it really holds the highlights and shadows together really well whenever I go down and up in exposure. It's really nice. Now, this clip looks really good already, so I don't need to make any adjustment on the exposure level. And then the balance, if I need to change any kind of white balance. Let me kind of look at this, and everything looks pretty good. The blacks maybe lean a little bit blue, but I'm looking at here the red, green, and blue spectrum in the waveform, and they're fairly close, so I'm not really going to adjust that. I would say this clip looks really well balanced. We're going to move on to the next clip, okay? All right, so here is a shot that we have, and let's go drag this node Powergrade on. Okay, so I can come over to my exposure, and this is what makes it super fast, is I can just adjust my exposure to taste. And so I'm going to bring down the exposure. Feel like that looks really good before and after. And then I'm going to go to balance, and I'm going to balance it. Now, I already had this node set up for gamma set to linear. And this is a much more efficient way of adjusting any kind of white balance in DaVinci Resolve. And the way that you're going to do that is you're going to come over to your color wheels, and you're going to only use the gain wheel. You're not going to be in log. Don't be in log. You're going to be in your color wheels. And then you're going to set your gain, and you can adjust the image. So this is like your tint, and then this is like your temperature. All right. And we do have a little bit of skin over here that we can try to check out. It looks like it might be coming through right here on the vector scope. So I'm just going to pivot this a little bit over, and then I can go up and warm, or I'm going to go cool to the shadows. So first I'm working with the tint. If I see any kind of skin tone, I kind of adjust it accordingly. And then I'm looking at the shadows here with the tires, and it looks just a little bit blue. So I'm going to go up towards warm a little bit. All right. So there's before, there's after, before, after. It's subtle, but again, everything will come into play, especially once you start working with creative LUTs that push the colors even more. All right, so this is now balanced. This shot looks balanced. Let's go to this one. Again, using these node trees that are predetermined makes everything much more quick if you want to edit in DaVinci Resolve and get really good results. There's my exposure, come over my balance, take my gain. Let's warm this up. Looks good right there. And then I have the primary and tone tab. So any kind of additional adjustments that you need. So say you might be filming with a Pro Mist filter and you have your blacks faded, lifted up, or it's really foggy or whatever it is. If you need to add more contrast, this is where you do that. So here I'm going to go to my primary node and I'm going to just pump up a little bit of contrast and then adjust my pivot. Okay. So I'm just adding a little bit of contrast here, and that looks good now too. So we're going from here, here. This looks good. Maybe a little bit too much in the shadows. So I'm just going to take my lift. All right, that looks great. Let's go to this other clip. We're going to apply it here. Exposure again. This is what's great is you're going to get the same results. Your tools respond the same way, and that's because we're in DaVinci Wide Gamut. If you were here and you noticed in your color management, your timeline color space, if I change this, the result will change because of the tools that I'm using. All right. And this tool right here, the HDR panel, is color space aware. So it is responding in DaVinci Wide Gamut, and we are properly set up our node tree workflow to work in DaVinci Wide Gamut. So let's get this right about there. It looks like this might have been filmed with an ND filter or something, because I'm getting a little reflection off the windows that look a little bit more purple. Sometimes that happens with different ND filters. It just depends, or a polarizer. Let's take our balance. It looks a little too purple and a little bit too cool in the shadows. Let's balance that out. Looks pretty good right there. All right. So I'm looking at this clip, maybe this one can be a little bit brighter. So I like where everything sits right here, but maybe let's extend the highlights. So I'm gonna take my gain, just pump that up, and then bring down my gamma just a little bit. So instead of using contrast, I'm just, controlling that in the color wheels here. All right, that looks much better. All right, these are looking pretty good. Obviously, different time of day. So you got different results. If we want this to be a little brighter, we can keep going. A little bit brighter. There we go. All right, feels good. Then we have this clip. This one was filmed in S-Log3, and you can see the exposure is really bright. So let's take our global wheel, our exposure, pull this down. Let's go to our balance. Looks like it's a little bit on the purple or cool side. So we're going to warm that up. Looks nice. Let's go to our primary. Let's pump up a little bit of contrast. Then change our pivot. Looks a little strong. Let's dial that back. I'm going to go back to my balance. Maybe it feels a little too much there. That looks great. And then we can go to any kind of further adjustments that we want to do. Maybe our gamma brought down, gain lifted up, just a touch up in my shadows. Just kind of playing around with it to what it looks good. And you can see before and after. And this is why color balancing is super important to getting really good, consistent results. All right, now we're going to be working with the D-Log-M clip. So this one looks like it was filmed a little bit bright. And so we're going to go over to our exposure. And as I'm adjusting this exposure, this is almost like you're adjusting your exposure in camera because it's properly set up for DaVinci Wide Gamut. So I'm going to set this probably right in the middle. And this one definitely needs a bump in the contrast, but let's set up our balance first. So we're looking at skin tone here on the vector scope. You can see it's leaning a lot more magenta or towards the red side. So we're going to take our color wheels and go to our gain, just bring that over. But now we have a black shirt. So let's see, we have the red, green, and blue. So the blue and green are a little bit higher than the red. So that means we're going to need to push that warm. So I'm looking at this spectrum right here on the waveform, the RGB parade, to make sure that the blacks are true black. And then I'm also trying to balance that with skin tone. So I'm using both of these scopes to dial this in. Okay. And let's just kind of keep finessing it until we can kind of get those lines all lined up while also keeping the skin tone. I'm not even looking at the image right now. I'm just looking at the scopes. All right, that looks good. I look at the image. All right, it looks pretty fantastic. So there's before and after. Before, it's a little bit more magenta and blue. And then after, properly white balanced, great skin tone, and good black levels. All right, now we can come over to our primary and really introduce some contrast to kind of get this looking a little bit more consistent with the other shots. All right, that looks nice. Now I want to come over to my gain, crank that up. Let's take our lift down even further. I'm going to go far and then bring that up in gamma, then lift it up again. Just kind of play with it until it looks pleasing. All right, that looks fantastic. So here's before, which is properly converted, and then after. And this is why we want to make sure our white balance and exposure is dialed in. And then when we look at it next to other clips, at least is in the same ballpark, okay? Now we're going to go ahead and start working with any kind of creative looks to make sure that things look consistent across all these clips. So I'm going to start on this clip right here, and we're going to go over to our timeline. And now that we have everything going from DaVinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709, we can now apply any kind of Rec 709 creative looks. So I'm going to navigate over to our LUTs, and we've got a few different packs that I feel like are really good when it comes to racing cars or motorsports or anything with vibrant colors, and you want things to really pop. You're not focusing on skin tone too much. You have a lot of greenery. This is where it comes into play. Looking at this clip, we have a really interesting red, magenta, orange color. Like there's a really interesting color here. I'm going to navigate to a pack that we have called Kinetic. And if I really want these greens to be really warm and punchy and this red vehicle to be punchy, I'm going to go ahead and go with like Kinetic 2. So I'm going to drag this over here. And you can see this has more of that Kodak feel. This is the inspired look that we have for that. And we can change the intensity of it by going to our key output and dialing that down to tastes. So you can see that feels pretty good right there. So maybe 70% feels really nice. And if there's something that you don't like about a creative look, or you want something to be a little bit more dialed in and unique, because we already have this properly converted and we have everything exposed properly, we're now in the look stage of this development. So we've applied a look. Now we can go and kind of shape that look if we want to. And it feels like maybe the shadows are maybe a little bit dark. So we can kind of lift that up if we want to. Actually, I don't like that. Let's go to gamma instead. Just a little bit. Yeah, that feels a little bit better. And then those two together are the look that we're coming up with right there. Let's check out a different look. We have Kinetic 1. I'm going to crank this back up to 100% so that we can see the intensity of that look. Looks really great. Kinetic 2. So you get some warmer. Kinetic 3. I like this one a lot. And then Kinetic 5, much more dense colors you can see. Kinetic 4 is going to be warm. I feel like the best ones are going to be 1, 2, and 3. And 2's kind of got more blues in the shadows. If we're to take a look at how this would look on another clip, let's just go over to the next clip, and immediately it's already applied to the look. You can see all these shots have a creative look applied to it because we're in the timeline view. Now, this clip changes, as you can see, based off of the flare, the sun, the angle, the car moving into more of a shaded area than bright light. So we need to consider what shot we're looking at. We're looking at this one, okay? That looks really nice. If we want to take a look at a different one, so I mean, honestly, that looks really good there. If we wanted it a little bit warmer, we can take and try out our creative pack. Let's try this. Creator 1, nice and neutral. 2, 3, you got a lot more blues in those shadows there. Stock, looks great. Cine 5, I use Cine 5 for a lot of things. It's pretty versatile. Okay, 6, 7. So 7 is bold. It's like a creative bold version. And then creative 8 is just a nice, strong version of bold. But what's powerful about that one, and I'll show you, this one doesn't change any of the color hues. So if you have brands or anything on cars that really are specific with their color hues and they don't want that remapped or very Hollywood, I guess, look applied to it, then our Creator Bold doesn't adjust any of that, but it gives you the right amount of density and the right amount of pop to anything, and it looks fantastic. And then we have our Orange and Teal 9, Orange and Teal 10. Those look really cool, especially on this type of clip. Like, I mean, this looks really cool. You can see before and after. These look nice. Just love the style option. Really clean version there if we want to. All right, let's try X88. Let's do Prime. Again, this is a good clean version overall. Sigma, you can see how the blues are affected. Theta, I like Theta. Zeta is going to be a nice split tone, depending on if that's the look you're wanting to go for. Delta, and then Gamma. You got some really nice deep reds there. So Prime feels like a really nice one to consider. And then if you want to have anything that's kind of, you know, very orange and teal, we have a faction collection. So we're going to go to faction 01, 2, here's before and after, faction 3, faction 4, 5 is really cool, and 6. I feel 4 and 6 are my favorite, and these have been used in a lot of music videos as well. Probably faction 6 is going to be my best one. And if I notice that, you know what, this clip is still really bright or dark, then I can come over back to the clip level and adjust that deepness, or I can adjust that shadow level there. Now, one really cool, powerful tool that I like to use on individual clips like this is where I don't really want to change the overall exposure too much, but I want everything to pop a lot more. This is where the secret tool, Gamut Boost, comes into play. And I'm going to use this on the tone slider here. And I'm going to navigate to Gamut Tools, Gamut Boost, and apply that. And look at what happens before and after. Before and after. And it's almost as if you're putting a polarizer on your lens. You can see the sky comes back into play really well. You get more density in the skies, more details in the clouds. The hood of the car has more color depth to it. The greenery kind of pops a little bit more. Overall, it's a really great tool to use, and it can be applied to any kind of clip and looks fantastic. So for instance, if I have, let's say, this clip, and I want to apply the Gamut Boost LUT to it, I'm going to go over to our timeline, and I have a section right here already called Boost. I can drag that onto it and watch what happens. Like, that looks fantastic. Before and after, everything just pops really well, and that's going to apply to all of these clips now. You can see how we're losing a little bit of that color fidelity because of the highlights, but this brings back all that color depth to the highlights, even the road. I mean, Boost is going to be such a nice, unique tool to consider whenever you're looking at using that. Now let's see what it looks like with skin tone, because we have this clip right here where we have our subject and we have skin tone with cars in the background. How do we make sure this looks really good? Well, we have a look already applied. And in this case, I probably want to use a Creator LUT. So let's go back to Creator and let's do Cine 1. All right, this looks really nice. We can see, let's just check the rest of the clip, see what greens look like. All right, so this is a really nice one to take a look at. Now, if I want things much more balanced, for instance, we have really strong highlights on the skin, and that's just because we have harsh sun. But if we want to take that edge off, what are we going to use? Gamut Boost. So let's go back to our clip and let's turn on Gamut Boost and let's see what happens. Wow, look at that skin. We were literally losing all that color fidelity, and the skin was kind of moving in towards that white color because it's closer in those highlights. And this brings back all that color depth back into skin. And this is an Osmo Pocket 3 camera. And what you can do with it when you properly grade it and you're using the proper conversions like our base LUTs is you can get amazing looks like this. You can make your subject pop, and it really stands out. Now, I would probably dial down the intensity, probably 60%. Looks really great. And then I can come back over to our timeline and add texture. So now I have a texture node that has grain already applied and halation. And this is part of our free node tree that we make available on our website. So check that out if you're interested. Here is the completely before shot, straight out of camera, Osmo Pocket 3 D-Log M. And this is what we have finished. What we've done is we've converted from D-Log M to DaVinci Wide Gamut. We've adjusted our exposure, adjusted our balance. We went ahead and added contrast, and then we added a nice creative look, but we went back to the individual clip and added Gamut Boost to make it pop even better. Honestly, these results look fantastic, especially whenever you're mixing it properly. And I think what really helps this clip stand out, honestly, if I'm being honest, is that Gamut Boost. Because what it does to skin tone just makes it feel like it was filmed with a higher end camera. Okay. All that looks fantastic. And then we can go to these other clips and see how everything looks. Now, another fun thing that I like to do is I like to mix LUTs to make something pop even more. And because we've developed our creative LUTs from Gamut to be able to be stackable, where you can stack LUTs, I'm going to show you how to do that right here. So we're going to go over to shape. I'm just going to reset that, and I'm going to select a different LUT. So we have already used the, let's see which one, Crater 1. Now I'm going to use 08 bold. Now this one, like I said, it's not going to shift into the colors, but it's going to be adding a lot more density and saturation to the clip. So let's add this one to here, and boom, look at that. Also, I have this texture node. I'm going to go full screen. Look at the texture. It's adding halation to this section right here, a little bit on the edges, adding a little bit of softness, really nice grain. And I mean, this is before and after. This looks freaking fire. Looks amazing. Okay. I love this shot. It looks really nice. And we're having two LUTs stacked on top of each other. We have Crater 1 and Crater 8 to create that look. And if I go before and after, you can see how that looks. And in this clip, it looks amazing. If you want to work with motorsports or racing cars or events like this, and you really want your images to pop and you want to have really nice colors, this is an amazing workflow to keep everything consistent across different cameras and some really powerful creative LUTs that you can help make your footage stand out. So definitely check out our LUTs at gamut.io. Also, you can download the Powergrade for free. This whole Powergrade that we make available, you can pick that up. It has all 4 of these parts, and I've shown you in this video how to properly apply our Powergrade to your DaVinci Resolve timeline, and then how to use that secret tool, Gamut Boost, to really make everything pop even more. Hopefully this video is helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.